What if I told you that some of the most astonishing stories of faith, sacrifice, and miracles are hidden in books that most Christians have never even read? Welcome to the Books of Maccabees, 3 powerful texts from the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible that tell the gripping story of how the Jewish people fought to preserve their faith in the face of an empire bent on destroying it. These texts, banned or excluded from many Christian Bibles, contain stories of divine intervention, heroic battles, and the unshakable power of faith. The events in the books of Maccabees will challenge everything you thought you knew about the history of the Bible. So, why were these books banned? What secrets do they reveal that you've been denied for centuries? In this video, we'll dive deep into all 3 books of Maccabees, uncovering the extraordinary details that set these stories apart. From miracles on the battlefield to martyrs who faced death with unwavering faith, these books offer spiritual insights that might leave you in awe. But we won't stop there. If you want us to take an even deeper dive into each of these incredible books, make sure to like this video and leave us a comment below. Let us know if you'd like separate videos dedicated to the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd book of Maccabees, and we'll make it happen. And to make it even easier for you to follow along, we've added chapter links in the description, so you can jump back to any section of the video whenever you need. If you haven't already, check out the other videos in our series on the banned books of the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible. We've already covered hidden gems like the Book of Enoch, the Book of Jubilees, and many more. The links are in the description, so be sure to explore those videos as well. So now let's dive into the books of Maccabees, a hidden chapter of biblical history where faith meets resistance and divine miracles. What if I told you that the spark of one of the most significant rebellions in Jewish history began with a single act of defiance? The first book of Maccabees isn't just a tale of war. It's a powerful story of faith under fire, where the very existence of the Jewish people's religious identity was at stake. This ancient text, excluded from many Christian Bibles, holds some of the most inspiring moments of faith, resistance, and miraculous victories you've never heard of. The Maccabean Revolt took place in the 2nd century BC, at a time when the Jewish people were being forced to abandon their sacred traditions. The Seleucid Empire, under Antiochus IV Epiphanes, was determined to erase Judaism, replacing it with Hellenistic culture and pagan worship. The Temple of Jerusalem was desecrated, and the people were ordered to offer sacrifices to Zeus. For many Jews, this was a line they could not cross. Does this sound familiar? Just as Daniel and his friends stood up to King Nebuchadnezzar, refusing to bow down to the golden image in Daniel 3, the Jews in 1st Maccabees faced the same choice: either forsake their faith or face death. The Maccabean Revolt mirrors the trials faced by faithful believers throughout the Bible, where standing up for God often meant risking everything. The rebellion begins with an act of courage that would change everything. A Jewish priest named Mattathias, confronted by royal officials who demanded he offer a pagan sacrifice, did the unthinkable. He refused. And in a moment of righteous fury, Mattathias killed the official who was enforcing the king's decree. This single act of defiance ignited the Maccabean Revolt. This moment is reminiscent of other acts of zeal seen in the Bible, such as when Phinehas in Numbers 25:7-13 defended the holiness of God by slaying those who violated the covenant. Like Phinehas, Mattathias' bold stand for his faith triggered a movement that would preserve Judaism in one of its darkest hours. After Mattathias' death, the leadership of the rebellion passed to his son, Judas Maccabeus, a man whose name still echoes in the halls of history. Known as the Hammer, Judas became a legendary military leader. Despite facing a vastly superior force, his small band of fighters repeatedly defeated the mighty Seleucid armies. But these victories weren't just military triumphs. They were seen as miraculous interventions from God. It's here that the story takes on a supernatural dimension. Just like Gideon's small army in Judges 7 overcame impossible odds, Judas and his followers believed that God's hand was guiding them to victory. Time and time again, they lifted their eyes to the heavens, calling on God before every battle. When Judas saw the multitude of the enemy's army, he turned to his men and said, "Let us not fear the numbers, but trust in the Lord of heaven, who is mighty to save in battle." 1 Maccabees 3:18. Their faith paid off. Against all odds, the Jewish forces under Judas Maccabeus won battle after battle, driving out the Seleucid forces and reclaiming their land. But in 2 Maccabees, the faith of these martyrs reaches a new height, choosing death with full confidence that God would reward them with eternal life. And standing at the heart of this unimaginable scene is the mother, a woman who witnessed the deaths of all 7 of her sons. Rather than crumbling under the weight of such tragedy, she encouraged her sons to stand firm, reminding them of the resurrection and the justice of God. Her faith and strength mirrored the spirit of Hannah in the book of 1 Samuel, who dedicated her son Samuel to God's service despite her personal pain. This mother's role in 2 Maccabees transcends even that. Her encouragement becomes a symbol of unwavering belief in the promises of God. Promises not just for this life, but for the life to come. In 2 Maccabees, the belief in resurrection becomes central to the story. While the concept of resurrection is only briefly mentioned in the canonical Bible, such as in Daniel 12:2, here in 2 Maccabees, it takes on a profound significance. The martyrs face their deaths with full confidence that God will raise them up in the world to come, where they will receive their eternal reward. This belief in life after death not only reflects Pharisaic Judaism, but also prefigures Christian theology. The idea that the righteous will be resurrected and rewarded becomes a key theme in the New Testament, particularly in Matthew 22:31-32, where Jesus affirms the resurrection, and in 1 Corinthians 15, where Paul describes the resurrection as a core tenet of Christian faith. In many ways, the martyrs of 2 Maccabees serve as forerunners to the early Christian martyrs, whose deaths were also seen as victories because of their belief in the resurrection. Their stories remind us that God's justice extends beyond this life, and that suffering for righteousness will be rewarded in eternity. But 2 Maccabees isn't just about the martyrs. It's also about divine miracles on the battlefield. One of the most striking moments comes during the battle at Beth Zur, where the Jewish forces are vastly outnumbered and on the brink of defeat. But in that moment, something miraculous happens. Suddenly, 5 splendid men on horses with golden bridles appear on the battlefield. They are not ordinary men. They are angels sent by God to shield Judas Maccabeus and his army from harm. These angelic warriors rain down arrows and lightning on the enemy, throwing them into confusion and securing victory for the Jewish people. When the battle became fierce, 5 splendid men on horses with golden bridles appeared to lead the Jews. They took Maccabeus in their midst, and shielding him with their armor, they kept him from being wounded. They showered arrows and lightning on the enemy, throwing them into confusion. 2 Maccabees 10:29-30. This scene echoes the angelic interventions seen throughout the Bible. like in 2 Kings 6:17, where the prophet Elisha's servant has his eyes opened to see the heavenly armies surrounding them. These supernatural moments in 2 Maccabees remind us that God is never absent in our battles. His angelic forces are always ready to intervene when faith and righteousness are on the line. Another powerful moment of divine guidance comes when Judas Maccabeus receives a vision of the prophet Jeremiah, who hands him a golden sword and tells him to take it into battle. This sword isn't just a weapon, it's a symbol of God's assurance that Judas will be victorious. Jeremiah stretched out his right hand and gave Judas a golden sword, saying as he did so, "Take this holy sword, a gift from God, with which you will strike down your adversaries." 2 Maccabees 15:16. This vision gives Judas the confidence he needs to lead his forces into battle, knowing that God's favor is with him. It's a moment that echoes other biblical encounters with divine messengers, such as when Joshua meets the commander of the Lord's army in Joshua 5:13-15, assuring him that God is with Israel as they prepare to enter the Promised Land. 2 Maccabees is more than just a continuation of the Maccabean Revolt. It's a powerful narrative that weaves together the themes of faith, divine intervention, and resurrection. The martyrs who gave their lives for the law of God did so with the belief that they would be vindicated in the afterlife. And the miraculous battles remind us that, even when outnumbered, those who stand with God never stand alone. The stories of 2 Maccabees deeply influenced early Christian thought, especially the connection between martyrdom and resurrection. The courage of these martyrs and the miracles on the battlefield inspire a faith that looks beyond the suffering of this world, trusting in God's ultimate justice. But as powerful as this book is, the story of the Maccabees doesn't end here. In 3 Maccabees, we see how God's protection extends beyond the battlefield, delivering his people from political oppression in ways you won't believe. The third book of Maccabees doesn't take place in the land of Israel. In fact, this astonishing story of oppression and divine deliverance unfolds in Egypt, far from the familiar battles of Judas Maccabeus. It's a book that reveals how God's power isn't bound by geography. He protects his people wherever they are, even in exile. And this time, the weapon of choice isn't the sword. It's faith and the miraculous intervention of God. While 1st and 2nd Maccabees focus on the Jewish struggle against the Seleucid Empire in Judea, 3rd Maccabees takes us into the heart of Ptolemaic Egypt, where the Jews face a new kind of persecution, not on the battlefield, but in the political arena. And just when things seem darkest, God steps in, and what happens next is nothing short of a miracle. The story begins with Ptolemy IV, the ruler of Egypt, attempting to force his way into the Temple of Jerusalem, fresh off a military victory against Antiochus III. Ptolemy wanted to enter the Holy of Holies, the most sacred part of the temple, reserved only for the Jewish high priest. His arrogance and disrespect for the Jewish faith would soon cost him dearly. As Ptolemy tried to enter the inner sanctum of the temple, God struck him with paralysis and blindness, preventing him from desecrating the holy place. Humiliated and enraged, Ptolemy returned to Egypt, where he plotted revenge, not just against the Jews in Judea, but against the Jewish population living in Egypt itself. Ptolemy's rage mirrors the same arrogance seen in rulers throughout the Bible. Think of Pharaoh, who hardened his heart against the Israelites, or Nebuchadnezzar, who demanded worship of his golden image. And like those kings, Ptolemy was about to learn that no earthly power can stand against the will of God. Once back in Egypt, Ptolemy IV ordered that all Jews in Egypt be rounded up, registered, and marked for execution. His plan was brutal. He intended to gather the Jewish population into the city of Alexandria and have them trampled to death by elephants in a public spectacle. The situation was dire, much like Pharaoh's decree to kill all the Hebrew male children in Exodus 1:22. Ptolemy's plan was designed to wipe out an entire people. The Jews of Egypt were facing total annihilation, simply because they refused to assimilate and abandon their faith. But as Ptolemy prepared his horrific plan, the Jewish people did something that would change everything. They turned to prayer and fasting. Instead of giving in to despair, they called upon the God of their ancestors, just as the Israelites did during their enslavement in Egypt. And just like in the days of Moses, God heard their cries. Prayer and fasting have always been powerful tools for invoking God's help in times of crisis. In the Book of Esther, we see how Esther called for a 3-day fast before approaching the king to save the Jewish people from Haman's plot. Similarly, in 2 Chronicles 20, King Jehoshaphat called for a fast when Judah was facing invasion, and God delivered them from their enemies. In the 3rd Maccabees, the Jewish people's faith in God's power to deliver them was unshakable, even in the face of death. Their collective prayer and fasting would soon bring about a miraculous deliverance that no one could have predicted. As the Jews gathered in Alexandria, awaiting their gruesome fate, Ptolemy's plan was set in motion. The elephants were brought in ready to trample the Jewish people, but in a stunning reversal, something incredible happened. God intervened. At the very moment the elephants were driven toward the Jews, the animals turned on their own handlers. Instead of attacking the Jewish prisoners, the elephants went wild, trampling the Egyptian soldiers and causing chaos in the city. The scene was a divine act of protection. God had once again delivered his people from the hands of their oppressors. This moment mirrors other miraculous acts of divine intervention in the Bible. Just as God sent plagues to free the Israelites from Pharaoh in Exodus, he now used the very animals meant to destroy the Jews to save them instead. It's also reminiscent of the parting of the Red Sea in Exodus 14, where God used the forces of nature to deliver his people from certain death. The story of 3rd Maccabees reveals an important truth. God's protection isn't limited to the land of Israel. Whether in Egypt, Babylon, or any other foreign land, God remains sovereign over the affairs of his people. No matter how powerful a king or empire may seem, they are no match for the divine protection of the Lord. This theme of God's sovereignty over political systems echoes the visions in the book of Daniel, where earthly kingdoms rise and fall, but the kingdom of God endures forever. Daniel 2:44. Ptolemy, like Pharaoh and Nebuchadnezzar before him, learned that God's hand cannot be stayed by human power. In the end, Ptolemy IV was forced to abandon his plans and acknowledge the power of the Jewish God. He issued a decree granting the Jews in Egypt freedom to practice their faith without interference, recognizing that their God had delivered them in ways that defied human explanation. The deliverance in 3rd Maccabees is a powerful reminder of how faith, even in the face of political persecution, can invite God's miraculous protection. The Jewish people in Egypt didn't fight with weapons. They fought with prayer, fasting, and their unshakable belief in God's power to save them. And once again, God proved that no earthly ruler can stand against his divine will. This story of miraculous deliverance is not as widely known as the battles of Judas Maccabeus, but it carries the same profound message. When God's people remain faithful, he is always ready to deliver them, no matter how impossible the situation may seem. What do you think of the miraculous deliverance in 3rd Maccabees? Does it remind you of other moments in the Bible when God stepped in to save his people against impossible odds? Let us know in the comments below, and if you're inspired by this story of faith, make sure to like and share this video with your friends. If you've been enjoying our deep dive into the banned books of the Bible, don't forget to check out Deep Bible Stories' other videos in this series. We've covered the Book of Enoch, the Book of Jubilees, and so much more. All the links are in the description.